Meta CTO Andrew Bosworth has done another Ask Me Anything on his Instagram account. As I've done before, I'm going to watch and react to this live, and I'll cut out anything that doesn't have to do with XR in general. Let's get into it. First question is, will there be a Quest 4?
I mean, we're definitely working on future headsets. One of the things that's hard, and one of the reasons these rumors and leaks are almost always wrong, is we don't decide that it's Quest 4 until we've built it and decided that's the one that we want to ship. So we're working on future headsets. What will they be called? When will they come out? That is literally not actually known at this point.
He said this multiple times before, that they're always working on multiple different prototypes and they don't know which one is going to be the one that actually goes to market. The leaks that he's referring to are that Quest 4 is supposed to come out sometime in 2026, and there'll be a 4 model and the S model. But again, this is something from, I think that was from Luna over on X, who's a very plugged in XR insider, but he's referring to basically people don't know because they're always working on different types of headsets. He's talked in the past about the fact that there were I think 2 or 3 prototypes, and they were choosing which one of those was going to become what eventually became the Quest Pro. Now, me personally, I think there will be a Quest 4, maybe even the Quest 5, but I do think they want to kind of get away from making actual VR headsets because the smart glass business has taken off so much. And they'll probably just be happy to just be software and a publishing studio when it comes to the XR game side of things, while they pivot to the glasses and AI and all that stuff, because that's where it seems like they see the most profit. That's my conjecture. That's no insider knowledge there. And I love to sit here and speculate about what a Quest 4 would be. But like he said, there's a dozen different prototypes. So even if we got leaks about a headset that they're working on, there's no guarantee that that headset will be Quest 4. Next question, when will there be mixed reality MR that utilizes your environment in real time rather than pre-scan?
Yeah, there's 2 different parts to this. The first one is just compute. It's expensive to constantly recalculate, what's happening in the environment around you. And we could be using that thermal and compute space for other things, which we think you might value more. The second one is actually, as a model, it's kind of harder. If I have pre-computed the environment and I hand that off to an application, the application can make a lot of predictions about that environment. If the environment's constantly changing, that application has to be much more dynamic, because okay, well, that table could move, that couch could move, and what do you do as a consequence? The truth is most of these experiences today are being used in static environments. That will change over time. So I think we will get there, to be clear. I think it will become a continuous process over time. And we've played with versions of this in the past with, we had, is someone transgressing the boundary? It's just kind of trade-offs, both against the compute today and then against the model that developers are using over the long term.
I think the first thing you said there was probably the most important, in that anyone who has used the Quest 3 or a 3S in mixed reality all the way through probably saw that their battery lasted maybe an hour and a half. This is ignoring any battery backups or anything. The internal battery of the Quest 3 and 3S, because mixed reality is just such a heavier load than actual virtual reality is, just absolutely kills the battery. So now asking a headset to continuously scan the room as you're playing the game, as opposed to a pre-baked scan that you did yourself or allowed the headset to do, it's just going to absolutely crush battery power. It's just too much overhead for the headset to handle right now. Could that happen in the future, like he talked about at the end? Yeah, sure, but I think that's going to be in future headsets, because they're going to need a more powerful chip, they're going to need a more powerful battery, they're going to need a lot of things to be better to handle that additional overhead without getting you a headset that only lasts 45 minutes. Next question, are we likely to see bigger FOV, that's field of view, in future VR headsets? This is a topic that he's talked about before. Let's see what he says.
I've talked about this before. I think there's a small but dedicated cohort of kind of the hardcore enthusiasts who want the bigger field of view, and I get it. I do. I have experienced really wide field of view headsets in research, really tall field of view headsets before, and the experience as you use them for more than a few minutes, it is not that profound of an improvement. And also, it's a huge impact on weight, cost, ID, form factor. It's a huge impact on those things. So I don't think it's worthwhile. And in fact, I'm not sure where the sweet spot is. But I respect the people who do want it. I'm just saying that's what we keep kind of running up into the fact that the trade-offs are so big on so many dimensions in exchange for one thing that any prolonged use doesn't seem to be that big of a value add.
Now, part of his answer here is the same stuff he said before. He said it multiple times in multiple past AMAs that basically they don't see the benefit in rendering more of the screen that the user is not looking at. Because when you're talking about field of view, you're talking about wider horizontal and wider vertical. So basically, unless you're darting your eyes around, it's not really what you're centrally focused on, because most things that you're going to be centrally focused on, you're actually going to move your head as opposed to just darting your eyes around. Now, the advent of eye tracking will change that a little bit, but that's kind of what he was saying there. The other thing, and this is something that people who really want gigantic field of view don't really like touch on, is the fact that those headsets, like you talked about, are like bigger. So like the form factor's bigger, they weigh more. A Valve Index weighs more than the Quest 3. So do most Pimax, actually all Pimax headsets. So the most Varo headsets, the ones that have that big wide field of view, those are just massive headsets. Meanwhile, stuff like the Quest 3, Big Screen Beyond, for instance, has a narrow field of view just because it's harder to render something that big in a smaller form factor. And smaller form factor seems to be where the industry is kind of leaning towards. I think for simmers and for PCVR diehards who really care about field of view, they'll just take the trade-off of having to deal with a bigger headset, accepting the fact that a smaller form factor means that they can't get that big wide field of view that they care for. A lot of people who are stuck with Valve Index, that's one of the things that they say is why they stuck with that headset, is the field of view is better than any other headset that they can get. Next question, how will the Quest continue to differentiate versus Google's XR headsets regarding ecosystem advantage?
Well, right now we're differentiating by existing.
Sorry about my microphone there. Okay, that was funny. Just throwing just straight shade at Google because they're not competing with the company that's not out yet. That's pretty much what he said. That was funny. All right, moving on. Next question. This isn't really a question. It's more of a statement that he's responding to. Says Horizon OS needs a stable features rollout with proper documentation, not staggered.
Yeah, good discussion and feedback from developers this last week on the stability and changes that we're making in our rollouts, making sure that those are higher quality than they have been. I think it's great feedback. We're taking it seriously. You know, for the battery saver issue, we're rolling a fix out for that. And more generally, I don't think it's the case that we're rolling things out too quickly. I do think it's just the case that we've got to have a stronger set of processes in place for quality control before things go out the door, which we're doing. We're taking a serious look at this. We're spending time on it. So we appreciate the feedback, as always, from developers. Take it seriously. That's our responsibility. These are our mistakes, and we're going to fix them. And we understand that this is not casual. This is people's livelihoods and time spent on the line that matters a ton, and the experience that consumers have of people's software. So yeah, taking that seriously, we're doing the work. I think staggering things helps, because staggering things actually helps us identify regressions sooner. But I agree we could do better on documentation too.
Okay, he mentioned battery saver there. For those who don't know, in a previous Horizon OS rollout, there was a change to the battery saver option that now locks it at, I think it's 90 hertz or as a refresh rate, but it drops the max frame rate the game can render at 45 frames per second. So then you have to use application space warp to get it to like 72 or 90. That's a mistake. That is absolutely a mistake, and I don't know how that got out the door. And anyone at Meta who thought that 45 frames per second as a flat rate for a game that is not using application space warp, for instance, was acceptable was wrong. Just straight up wrong. And that's what he was talking about, acknowledging the glitch with the battery saver. I don't think it was a glitch. I thought that was shipped, and then someone saw the feedback and went, oh no, we got to fix this. So that's why there's a hotfix coming out for that. Now, traditionally, if you got an update to your headset, not all the features will be available right at once. You would get some features right away, and then some features will be gradually moved in. That's what he talked about when he mentioned the whole phrase staggered. Me personally, I can't stand that, because there's usually a blog or like a release of patch notes of, okay, here's all the new features that are coming with this version of the OS, but they don't specifically say this may come for you later or anything. It just says, hey, here's all the things we did. And then people are on subreddits and Discord saying, hey, my headset updated, but I don't have this feature or that feature. And that creates a lot of confusion with the consumer, thinking that, you know, well, my headset's busted because I don't see this feature anywhere. I understand it because I've been in this ecosystem for so many years, but for someone who just kind of casually dabbles in it, they just read a list of patch notes and they think their headset's busted. So there's a bunch of things that need to change with how the Horizon OS rollout system happens, and hopefully they're looking at that and they've seen all the negative feedback over the last however many years. It just comes off messy and disorganized. So even though they may have a perfectly fine system behind the scenes, that's not what it appears like to us, and it's frustrating. Last question, Meta, parentheses, especially Reality Labs, in parentheses, is horrifically bloated When can we expect downsizing?
I'm putting this up here just so I can answer the next question, so hang tight.
And then next part of the question, how do you make peace with decisions that are not easy, like layoffs? Meta went through a series of layoffs last month. I did a quick short video about that. Check my shorts feed if you want to see the info on that specifically.
So I got one questioner saying, hey, you guys are bloated. The other one saying, hey, how can you stomach the layoffs? The answer is like, no one outside the company actually knows what's going on. People constantly on Twitter are, armchair quarterbacking what they think I should do, or what the challenges are, or if they just did this one thing, they'd fix it. And that's okay with me, because I know that they don't know what they're talking about. The way we do anything is with conviction. You believe that the thing that you are doing and the way you're doing it is the thing that's going to work. And I mean, work in the maximalist sense, like for the most people, for the product, for the consumer, for the business, for the world. It's balancing equities. There isn't a solution that it solves all the things. You're just optimizing the best you can within all the different competing equities that you have. And you build conviction around that. You believe in it. And you believe in it so strongly. I'm gonna go to part 2. You have conviction on a path forward. And that path isn't what you initially imagined, and it's not perfect, and it has flaws, but you commit to it. And you commit to all the negative that comes with it. Sacrifices that you have in your vision, the changes you have to make to the team, the changes you have to make to how you operate, the changes you have to make to yourself. Like, you commit to that vision and you try your hardest to make it work. And like, as it relates to layoffs specifically, like, I really believe this. Like, nobody wants to be the 11th person on a 10-man team. Like, we want to feel useful in our lives. We want to grow and be challenged and be valued and have our contributions valued. And at some point, a company thinking, hey, we think this is going to be valued, and then finding out actually we don't value that, I don't want anyone to stay in that position. And I understand that's like a very paternalistic view, but I really believe in that. They're better off going someplace where their contributions will be valued than staying where they are not.
I'm going to zero in because there's a whole lot of corporate speak in there. I'm going to zero in on the very last thing he said. And he said, I would rather someone go somewhere where their contributions are going to be valued than stay somewhere they're not valued. That's a really telling statement when you look at where they laid their employees off in Reality Labs. They've laid off the entire team at Ready at Dawn. They have shuttered that entire studio. Those are the ones who made the Lone Echo games and Echo VR, Echo Combat. They recently laid off people at Sanzaru Games who made Asgard's Wrath 2. They laid off people at Downpour Interactive who made Onward. So that line at the very end where he said, I want you to go somewhere where your contributions are going to be valued because the company saw value in this thing then and now they don't, and that's why you're being let go. That's a little ominous when it comes to their thinking about VR gaming. Just that last line really stuck with me when you look at the fact that they're laying off teams and they're laying off people within their own VR studios while still continuing to fund third-party games. Maybe they're having second thoughts about being like a first-party VR game studio, which kind of goes with my thinking what I said earlier about Quest 4, about maybe they want to get into more like a third-party, like a funding platform, as opposed to being like hardware and software specific first, because people are leaning more into like free-to-play. There's been multiple discussions from people inside Meta about that. They did a whole talk at GDC about that. And that's been their messaging moving forward, that, free to play and, Gen Alpha is our biggest emerging market right now. So these big bombastic AAA VR games are just being bought and played by less and less people. So yeah, that last line is very telling about what they're thinking about VR gaming right now. So that's my take. Let me know what you think down in the comments. If you like this video, let me know with a like and subscribe to the channel for more VR content. Thanks. Catch you on the next one.